Hi there, it's Mimsy here. This is going to be a travel laundry bag. So it's made out of real lightweight fabric that's thin and easy to pack into a suitcase. And it has this locking bead on it and it just draws up and you can hang it on your door handle in your hotel room. I'm going to show you how to make this super simple beginner drawstring bag. So let's get started. So the fabric that I'm using for this travel laundry bag is actually a drapery lining because I had it and it's 100% cotton. And it's thin and lightweight, so it'll pack into a suitcase easily and not take up hardly any space. And I'll link to it in the description box below. So the first thing you do is cut your fabric. Start your very first cut straight, square, and on grain, and I have a video for that. I'll link to that right here in the cards. I've already done that. I pre-washed my fabric so that it would shrink because it is 100% cotton. So you want to go ahead and pre-wash it because with a laundry bag, you might as well just throw it right into the wash along with all your dirty clothes. Once in a while anyway. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and press this so that these edges are nice and flat. So I made 18 of these bags for my daughter's team. In order to make this fast and easy, all I did was fold my fabric over selvage to selvage. So this is the selvage edge here. So now all I have to do is sew a seam on each side once it's cut. And then this is a nice finished edge, although I don't show raw edges, so this will be a double hem here. Anyway, so this is the way I did it. The measurements worked out great. It was a 54-inch piece of fabric, so this is 20, whatever, half of 54 inches. Then I went 21 inches wide, so I cut it 22. So that's the way I'm doing it. It's gonna be a 22 or a 21 by basically 21. Okay, and this mat and rotary cutter is a huge time saver. If you don't have one, get yourself one of these. Doing it this way with the fold down here and the selvage edge up here will save you so you don't have any waste in your fabric. Once it's cut to the proper length, then the first thing that I'm going to do is take this to my sewing machine and sew a side seam down both sides, and I'll do that about a ½ inch because what I'm going to do is a French seam on both of these side seams so that there will not be any exposed raw edges. I don't want to serge because that looks kind of messy too. So I'm going to do a French seam on this so that the inside of the bag is completely enclosed and looks very neat and tidy. So let's go to the sewing machine and sew our side seams. I am going to actually go ahead and throw a couple pins on each side. I'll just do quickly 3 pins down each side, just to keep it nice and neat as I'm carrying it over to my sewing machine so that these edges don't come apart. Here we are at my sewing machine. I'm just going to do a straight stitch. I set it to the longest stitch length. You don't have to do a small stitch on this because I'm doing a French seam, so this one's going to actually be enclosed. Other side. So it's sewn down both sides. Now I'm going to take it to my cutting table and cut this down to a scant 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So get your best cutting scissors. I'm going to cut this seam allowance down to about 1/8 of an inch. You want it to be nice and tight to your seam so that we can turn this into a French seam. Now on this fabric, there's no right side or wrong side. If you were doing this French seam and you have a patterned fabric, then you want to sew this first with the wrong sides together. So right side out, basically opposite of what you would sew anything else. So just keep that in mind if you're using a patterned fabric. You're going to sew, normally you would sew right sides together. In this case, for a French seam, you're going to start with wrong sides together. Okay, so that's cut down. So there's the seam. Can you see how close that is? We're just going to give this a quick press so that this seam will be pressed open and pressed flat. Thank you. You gave me cream too, huh?
If that's okay.
Cheers. So I'm going to press this seam flat, roll that out in between your fingers so that I could press the inside and press it open first, but I'm just going to do it like this. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine. So we're going to sew right here another about 1/2 inch seam, and what that will do then is enclose that raw edge, and we'll have a nice clean French seam. A French seam here is not completely necessary. You could absolutely just serge your edges and leave it at that. You could potentially even leave it raw, or you could do a zigzag stitch to overlock your seam. But since this is such a quick project, I just decided to do a French seam because it looks so nice. And see, now we'll turn this inside out, or we'll turn it the other way, and we've got a nice seam there, and then this will be the inside seam of the bag. So everything is really neat and tidy. And I'll go to the table now and press these seams open, and then we'll do the top hem. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this thing inside out so that I can do the top hem easier. I'm going to do a double, basically a double 1 inch. And this you can do kind of whatever size you want. So there's a one fold. And here's 2 folds. So I'm going to do it about a 1 inch. And that makes it easier to string the rope, to string the drawstring. All right. So there, let me make sure the bottom side is folded the same. Yep, so now I'll press that. Okay, and I'm just going to throw just a couple pins in here to keep it folded. 4 pins will do it, and I'll meet you back at the sewing machine. I'll show you how I sew this and where I leave the opening and everything. I like to use my blind hem foot for things like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on one of the side seams, because I'm gonna leave about 1 inch open right there. That's where my drawstring is gonna come out, and it'll end up being on the inside of the bag. So there's lots of different ways you could do this. You could maybe put a buttonhole in here, but I'm doing it this way because it is absolutely the easiest solution, easiest and fastest way to close this up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to back stitch and forward stitch this to really lock it in, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on there, because that's where the drawstring will come out of the hole and will be pulled a lot. So okay, so I'm back to the beginning here, and I'm going to back stitch and forward stitch 4 times in order to make sure that it's really locked in there. There's the channel for the drawstring to go through. All raw edges are enclosed. So now we just need to thread the drawstring into the opening and into the bag. To see the video on how I threaded the drawstring, the absolute fastest way to thread a drawstring, it's in the next video right here.